Welcome, everyone. My name is Deanna Fong, and I'm the literary editor of the Capilano Review. Very, very grateful to be here tonight with you in Vancouver on a very beautiful evening. For this is the sixth and final event in our 2023 series, Dear Friends and. Thank you all for being here with us, and a special hello to everybody who's joining us by live stream. Hi. We know that these are difficult times to feel well, so we're grateful for the comfort found in being here together in each other's company tonight. We're gathered here tonight on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, nations who have inhabited this land since time immemorial, and whose stewardship has made it possible for us to live and gather here at all. As an organization primarily run by settlers, we'd also like to call attention to the indigenous name Capilano, an important hereditary title that is often anglicized as Capilano, which has been used without acknowledgement in our journal's title since its founding in 1972. If you're interested in learning more about the history of this name, we invite you to read the feature essay on the name Capilano on our website. For those of you with us tonight who may be unfamiliar with the Capilano Review, TCR is a Vancouver-based nonprofit literary and visual arts journal that's published 3 times a year from our offices in the Woodward's Heritage Building. Originally founded by Pierre Coupé at Capilano College in 1972. I can't see you, Pierre, but hi. Woo! Hey! There you are. Nice to see you too. So TCR has been independent since 2015. As we head into the launch of our 151st issue later this season, a special issue on the theme Anti-Monuments, the Capilano Review's mandate continues to be the presentation of experimental writing and visual art, often in dialogue and often side by side. If you're curious to learn more, we invite you to visit us at the merch table beside the bar, where you can find copies of our current and recent issues, tote bags, art editions, and more. If you enjoy the event tonight or have been with us throughout this series, we'd also like to encourage you to consider purchasing a subscription to the Capilano Review so that we can continue to publish, program, and promote art and writing in this city and across Canada. A 1-year print subscription will get you 3 print issues delivered to your door, and subscriptions are crucial to small independent journals like ours, so please read and subscribe to show your support. As this is the final reading of the year, I'd like to take a moment to give the Western Front a big round of applause. They've been such generous supporters of this series. In particular, we'd like to thank Susan Gibb and Keel Torres, who co-organized the series with myself and art editor Jacqueline Ross, as well as technician Ben Wilson, videographer Keely Wu, and photographer Rachel Topham. Thanks for inviting us into this space and for bringing this program to a wider audience across Canada. We'd also like to thank the Kootenay School of Writing for their generous donation that helps support this program. And if you enjoyed this year's programming, we are pleased to say that we're hoping to continue this series into 2024 and are currently looking for donors to support the next season. If you're interested in donating to this program specifically, please come speak to us after the reading. Christian Vistan, our artist in residence for this reading series, is also here tonight and has produced the visual background for this reading. Circling back to the motif of the ampersand that punctuates our series title, Christian's paintings return us to the ampersand's raw material, the line, a building block that is common to both painting and poetry. As this event concludes Christian's residency with the Dear Friends and series, we'd like to extend an especially big thank you to them for generating such thoughtful encounters with these events all year long. Thanks, Christian. Okay, and some quick housekeeping before we get on with the evening. Each of our 3 readers tonight will be presenting for about 20 minutes with no intermission. We're doing our best to keep everyone safe at this event, so we strongly encourage the use of masks when not eating or drinking. There's an all-gender washroom available on this floor just outside the hall, and an additional 2 washrooms are located downstairs in the foyer. We acknowledge that this space is not currently wheelchair accessible, so to everyone attending by live stream, thank you for being patient with us while we continue to work through all the necessary steps to make large-scale upgrade to this historic building a reality. And with that, I will introduce our first reader tonight, Samantha Marie Nock. I first encountered Samantha's work when I heard her read alongside Jordan Abel and the musical group McGirl here in Vancouver some years ago, and I was knocked to the floor by the humor, candor, ferocity, and vulnerability of her work. I immediately followed her on Twitter and have basically not missed a tweet since. Her current book of poetry, A Family of Dreamers, which was just published in Talon Books' fall catalog, presents us with acts of listening and witnessing, to the speech of family members and friends, as well as internal dialogues with the past and present self, as a basis for ethical relations with everything that forms the part of our world. Samantha Marie Nock is a Cree Métis writer and poet originally from Treaty 8 territory in the Peace region of Northeast British Columbia. Her family is originally from Sikitawak, Île-de-Croix, Saskatchewan. Samantha currently resides on the unceded Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh lands in so-called Vancouver. She's had works published in Maisonneuve, Vice, Prism International, and Best Canadian Poetry, among others. Here's Samantha.
Thank you, Deanna. It's funny you bring up that reading. That was so long ago. And I felt that was a really funny one. I felt like my jokes weren't landing on that crowd very well. Tense Sam Natsikesan Dasin Kriko Tinia Magama Fami Sigitawak, Otinianan, Karanas Komentnawa, Masquia Maski, Squamish Eski, Igwa Tutaski, Karanas Komentnawa Kakiao. So my name is Sam. I was struggling with thinking about showing up today and thinking about, well, what does it mean to do a land acknowledgement while we witness what is happening in Gaza. And I was thinking about how a Métis elder a long time ago told me that when the RCMP forcibly relocated a lot of the Métis settlements, they would first come at night and kill the dogs before they came the next day to burn the houses down. And I was trying to think, how do I even wrap my head around anything that's happening? And I'm a firm believer that you should never have to make anything about yourself to see the humanity in someone else and feel that empathy. But in trying to understand, that's what I thought of. And I thought of my cookum telling me about how they would turn an electric fence on around the residential school so the kids wouldn't leave. And sitting with that and the uncomfortableness and having to go on our day by day, living in this dichotomy of witnessing genocide, knowing that my kin and relatives continue to survive genocide here, sometimes it feels like all too much. But I wanted to take some of my time today and tonight to just bring that into the space and to let that uncomfortableness sit with us as we are here and as we share this time together, because I'm a big believer too that in a part of gathering is also having to hold that complexity and having to hold each other in ways that we don't even understand. So with that, thank you for sitting in that uncomfortableness with me. And now we are gonna watch me flip through my book. The first poem, oh, I'm shaky. I wanted to read is called, my 20 minutes is actually just me flipping through my book. There we go. It's called Follow Your Traplines Home, and what is it called? The beginning epigraph is a part of a poem by Selena Bowen, who's another amazing Cree poet, and I highly recommend everybody go read her book. And in it, she says, "If sadness is a legacy, so is joy. We carry the grief of our ancestors while we carry our mother's grief, our auntie's grief, and the grief of the old woman we saw in Shoppers. She has a face like our cookums, the communion of wrinkles gathered in the corners of her eyes, dug deep into brown skin from laughing, crying, fighting, and loving us through existence. Her wrinkles sprawl like river deltas, like forest trails, like northern logging roads, like trap lines. This belonging is lonely and full. We exist in the embodied pressure of what it means to be. It feels like there's an inevitable sadness and we are just waiting for the levee to break. What more can they expect from us when with each passing day, it feels like we are either reading or writing our obituaries? Solace comes in small waves and never all at once. It's the warmth of a lover's palm, joyful moments in the sun over steeped red rose tea. It's prairie laughter crinkling up the corners of our eyes, creating trap lines for each other to follow home. Thank you. Quiet. We're a quiet crowd. That's not me making fun of you. This next one is My Body of Muskeg. I'm really front-loading you with some of my sad poems. Some of my sad poems, all these poems are sad. That's the joke, you can laugh, it's okay. This one's called My Body of Muskeg, and yeah. When you're in the bush, look for dead spruce, gray and leaning sideways. That's where the muskeg is. I'm waiting for the bus on Renfrew. It's bringing me to the final witnessing event. Today, I'm supposed to heal enough for my family. Muskeg will swallow a human whole. Moose sink to the bottom, so I'm told, so I tell people from the city. I'm going to listen to speakers and survivors from that system you survived, I tell Cookham on the phone. Permafrost doesn't let the water through. It doesn't let the decomposing wood and bugs and spirits through. Find me answers, babe. She orders me from the other end. She wasn't allowed to heal with this so-called nation. Her story isn't big enough to be in the sad chapter of this country's history. Moss covers mud, covers unknown beings below the surface. I listen to white talking heads talk about reconciliation and healing and witnessing. Someone hands me a tissue, I'm supposed to be crying. I don't get the answers Cookham wants. There is a medicine that grows by the muskeg. It has a twin that is poisonous. Grandma, this lady gave me a 1-800 number for you to call. My weak words delivering her non-answers. Cookham says she has called, my mom has called, my auntie has called, that dead end. Swampland doesn't heal, it regenerates and makes the dead anew. They destroyed the residential school at Alacrosse, or so I read in the news. I carry my ancestors in my body, and my body isn't so different than muskeg, full of frost, but supporting life. Strong enough to hold the growth of others, but deep enough to swallow spirits whole. We carry the past in our DNA, we hold its trauma and its love, and we pass that down in blood that's been boiling for 150 years. Okay. Usually I come to readings and like a clown on stage, but I had a full day, had a full life. This one's called A Stum, and it's for Lindsay, my cousin, who is the biggest brat. Come here, Apitan. It's wintertime now, we can tell stories. The spirits are resting, they won't follow us home. Tell me yours. Rest your head on my lap, I'll braid your hair like Wakaskwa. You understand how hard it is when your mother and grandmother and great-grandmother have all been taught that being vulnerable has never ended well for us. But for you, I'll try. Astum. Now tell me, how did it hurt? They don't understand how much we brawl and clash and fight with nails and teeth only to get told that we didn't fight hard enough, that we didn't do enough to someone doing enough to us. You don't have to bite your way out anymore. They don't know how to read the stars, but we do. The spirits in our bodies tell us that when we can no longer speak, they will speak for us. It wasn't me who set the world on fire. It was our great-grandmother's hands that lit the match and let it go. Astum. Rest your head on my lap, close your eyes. Let's watch them burn. Okay. So I don't really have a lot of poems. Like, I didn't really choose my poems before this. So we're going on pure vibes. All right. This one's called More Than Human. I feel like I'm reading these off like an auctioneer. I will sell you a cow. I grew up in the country. Once I did accidentally buy a cow at an auction. I'll tell you that story later. This one's called More Than Human. I bloody my knuckles punching the tough-crusted snow of my homelands. Watch the pink snow melt into streams. Please carry my heavy spirit to the ocean. Mios and mina piekwaui wapatan. What is it like to trust that prairie crocuses will stick their weary heads through the frost every spring? The rocks sewn in my stomach make relaxing into the soft grass impossible. The fresh-faced forget-me-nots keep asking, Nimwitsi nandao kitsiayan. I keep asking the choke cherries to remind me why they love me. Otatsi nigi nitawagan. I ask the red berries. I shake the red berries from their branches, hoping they'll fall into my hands in tender ways. The problem with shaking berries from their roots is that eventually no berries will be left to shake. I ask the paper birch, Mistas kagi wapatin. Please wrap me in your soft bark. I want to be enveloped fully. Pull me into your firm trunk and swallow me whole. Together, birch tree, we can listen to the wind celebrate our skins as it blows through our leaves every summer. What an existence it is to be daughter and sister to all these things, solitary and held in their roots and waters. I can't pull at tender pentacles, asking if I'll be okay. The melting snow, unearthing fall rot, fertilizes the spring growth as it blooms into late spring harvest, reminds me what always will be. We have to let our dead leaves fall to grow a stronger tree. All right, I think I just have a couple more. When we were told we have 20 minutes, I was like, I don't know that I can read for 20 minutes. We'll do this one. So I'm about to embarrass my partner a little bit. He can deal with it. So the last time I was at Western Front, I was reading and organized an event with my friend Celia, and it was a response to Laurie Blondau's amazing performance piece, Cosmos Qua. If you ever have a chance to see it, it's an absolutely phenomenal piece of performance art. And after that event, my lovely partner, who wasn't my partner at the time, came up to me and very bravely was like, I have a crush on you. And I was like, no. And then I sent her like a text being like, that was so sweet, thank you very much, but I don't think I can't, no, because I freaked out. But we've been dating for 5 years, so it worked out. But I think of that, and it's a very fond memory, and I'm in this space. And I don't write a lot of love poems. I guess I do and I don't, but I don't write a lot of sappy love poems. But I wrote this one. I'll hold my hand in yours. Jessica says ceremony is wanting to have 2 wives and 1 husband and filling them all with so much love they feel it in the webs of their feet. This is a ceremony I braid my hair for. My fingertips trace the uneven paths of your palm while your fingertips write manifestos on my stomach. I tell myself that whatever happens, happens. Despite all that I have weathered, I can survive getting lost in someone else's storm. I whisper my secrets to the black spruce, graying in the muskeg. They are aging aunties cared for by time. I learned to love by watching snow fall on snow, hoping it's as gentle, beautiful, and silent. I'm scared to say what I really think. You're a wonderful mess, a tangle of alfalfa on the side of the highway. My lips are always pointing to the horizon, anticipating collapse. Between our bodies is space that only time can fill. Jessica says, be careful, let it be beautiful, and pay attention. And I think I'll listen to her. All right, so this is my last one. I put these sticky notes in this book like I know they're here for something, and then I just move them around, and they are absolutely useless. I just want to feel like a real poet, because I guess real poets have sticky notes. So happy that was live streamed. Okay. I've been up since 5:30 in the morning. This one's called Chickadee. Chickadee watches the end of each season and lovingly sings us into the next. She watches 1,000 little deaths and 1,000 more little births before she sees hers. One being's apocalypse is another's good morning. Aren't we all just the representation of many beginnings and endings? For me to be here, the world had to begin and end egwa ka kitwam. I dream of aunties I've never met sitting around Cookum's table, northern wind escaping their lips. They tell me that my first love has to be continuation. From her branch outside my window, Chickadee reminds me of the good memories. Grandma taught me how to listen to her. Chickadee teaches me lessons on grief and the tenderness of existence. She reminds me to hold on to every small pleasure, the softness of the morning, the warmth of summer nights, someone's hand in yours, and heavy August sunlight dancing across the kitchen table. She carries the weight of the world only to tell us the certainty of an end makes room for us to begin again and again and again. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Samantha. And thanks for that invitation to hold all of it together here together. So appreciate that. Our next reader, Wayde Compton, has been shaping the path of literature in this country on every front in his work as a poet, prose writer, performer, critic, editor, interviewer, and teacher. And I might have missed some in there too. It's entirely possible. His book of essays, After Canaan, is one that I return to perennially in my thinking around sound, poetics, and politics, as they're cut through with the experience of racialization and hybridity, centrality, and peripherality. The forthcoming issue of TCR features a conversation between Wayde and Hope Anderson, who you'll meet later tonight, that not only rings loudly with an affirmation of poetic world-making, it also testifies to the important work that Wayde has done and continues to do in reverberating others' voices in the space of the literary sphere. Wayde Compton is the author of the poetry collections 49th Parallel Psalm and Performance Bond, work of fiction The Outer Harbor, and collected essays After Canaan, essays on race, writing, and region, all from Arsenal Pulp Press. He also edited the anthology Bluesprint, Black British Columbian Literature and Orature. His forthcoming book, Anti-Racist Poetics, will be released with the University of Alberta Press in 2024. He teaches creative writing at Douglas College. Here's Wayde.
In 2001, Arsenal Pulp published an anthology that I edited called Bluesprint, and Hope is one of the writers in there. And so that's when I first met him, but just through correspondence. And so it's really great to be here and to read with Hope. So I'm just going to start this. So the poem I've been tussling with for a while is a long narrative poem, and it's loosely based on the Argonautica by Apollonius of Rhodes, so the ancient Greek epic with Jason and the Argonauts. But it's made strange in ways that you'll see in a moment. It's called The Objects, and this is the beginning of it. Oya, goddess of storms, help me tell of 3 metonyms freed from their reference who sailed the Pacific coast of North America on the Covery in search of gold, freedom, heaven. I took myself far off from my own presence, far indeed, and made myself an object. Frantz Fanon, White Skin, Black Masks. Shaped like a star, on the coast of Guerrero, New Spain, made of stone, stacked by brown hands, Mexican granite, volcanic ash, mortar, a fort. Inside, the constellation of a woman, enslaved, serving, surviving 3 commanders to, with her star-shaped hands, lubricate the trade between this bastion and another across a tomb of blue and green. One world of white caps away in a yet newer Spain. In Manila, galangal, getting silver, pepper, cinnamon, and camphor, smithing muskets and the cannon. Imagine this desecration, this inverted alchemy, this continent across her shoulders, this hemisphere holding her, a part, a figure, an externality, dispersed on a ledger of waves, harbors, ports, and fields. They had overlanded her, a saturation of marching to the edge of an ocean mockingly larger than the last, to a fort shaped hopelessly like summation. The worth of her walking on flagstones, laundering, washing, up and down the stone steps, ashore, each step a blow, each freshly foisted littoral hiss, always there, just one leap past a rampart over which one could sail and spray forever, this every day, or any other. But on one febrile evening, one sight punctured her midst across the yard in the eye of her work, a pyramid of trash near their quarters, its capstone a memory of sorts, a form, a vessel of a limb, an illusion in the refuse. Halfway back, she stopped and regarded a soldier's boot, worn through, leather undone from walking in the cadence of the racking sun, a husk of power, a boot that a man, a boy, a Spaniard, a Mexican wore and discarded, returned, this thing she saw, its size so shockingly small, pried as it was from sal de mi camino, and parted from the stance of its paired self, a lone thing, a single lost boot on the off-castings of the sun-broken garrison on this coast of Guerrero. She rescued the boot, its smallness, it went under her cot where she kept it, its suggestion of a boy's foot, a boot emptied of soldiering, only a boy, her lost one, along the way in this cataclysm of coasts. In the words she whispered to it, she found him. In the commander's quarters, gathering washing, she stopped, and her shape loomed in the ornate lead-framed looking glass above the mantel. Her likeness a stutter, a ripple in the backward silver, a flash of self. And in her cradling left arm, cocooned warm, the worn leathern cherub at her hip as she went, the two oblong in the moment, together just ahead of missing, of breaking. Imagine her being brought before the commander through a sun shower of bruja, spat through the heat-cracked lips of the men. Imagine the two of them, her, this discarded boot, sent up an earthquake of steps to the boss and the priest on the overlook, cloaked in a hectoring breeze. They talked, but not to her, about her, before her, asked questions of her without waiting for answers. She haltingly understood, the boot cradled in the crook of her dignity. The priest she gathered had dreamed. Some virgin in an azure voice had told him this curt prophecy. The commander will die by the next to arrive at the fort wearing just one shoe. This is what was said to the priest in his mind by the mother of their God as he slept in this gyre of fears. And she knew, seeing the commander weakly wave the thought off, that he nonetheless believed it. And so the boot, a boy, shoe enough, son, a pox, her shivering conception was under a kind of warrant. The two men conferred. She burned. They argued. She held tight. They differed, then converged. A mirage, they agreed, could not be killed, though it could kill. If this slave, witch-like, had breathed a spell into semblance, the conjuration was ghostly. Destroying the boot would merely free it to float unseen. But the sea, all agreed, could cage life or death more finally than any fire. This curse, this mark, they were sure, would cling to the boot wherever it went. Their sentence was to set it adrift, to banish it to the contractions of the Pacific. They took him from her arms, a sad boot, and the echo, the tide, scuttled her. She fell, but they stood her up, and in time all knew she would work again. When her fever broke, she would return to her descending senses. A sloop, an algebra of planks, battle-broken, one in piracy, beside a dock that juts out past the foreshore into the bruise of evening. On its deck, a genesis that is the boot awaits a reading of exile in the morning, an asterisk of soldiers before the gangplank guarding at the priest's insistence its stepless pall. The men-at-arms huddle against this farcical watch, drink through the hoax of it, coconut brandy wetting their scoffing as the moon blanches the ocean. The oldest says that the arrested boot, like any other so condemned, should be shown a final mercy. A last night with a woman before the celibacy of drifting. He sends the youngest quick to the bastion, laughing, to fetch an apron. The younger returns, balls it, throws. It unfurls like a slow slap landing on the deck. They toast the joke of this evening. Both are so summoned, hemorrhages of human motivation, animations, a boot, an apron. At a pause, the middleman produces a rattle from his pocket, a gourd he took from one of the shackled, a lacquered bulb full of clicking shards of memory, plinking fragments of shell, a trophy worth more now to him in the form of this drunken prank they are making, a plank in their shelter of slurring. He offers it all sincerity, a right maker to pronounce their boot and apron honest, a priest as he ordains the rattle to marry the two. More laughter, and over goes the rattle, clattering against the wood of the ex-English exiling sloop. But that crash cracks the spell. Their watch sours, goes solemn. The wind whips up. The trio stills, a step too far. Something in the shaking. They try to be jovial, but bicker in whispers. The wind is a sudden hatchet off the water. They bleed heat and watch the east uneasily, till the morning star climbs over the stones of the fort and relieves them of what they have spoken open. Imagine a boot, an apron, a rattle, in the jail of a forecastle at sunrise while a commander, a priest, and a pilot assemble to talk them into forgottenness from the dock, the obverse of prophecy. Just the pilot boards. The men get ready to untie her, and the commander, catching a smile on the lips of one man working, marks the wound this move has gouged out of their respect for him. To close, he decides to punctuate this ghost marooning with a laugh and declaims before the crowd that the boot can only return when its hull is low with Juan de Fuca's storied gold. With that treasure only may the boot buy its way out of exile, says the commander, and the men laugh halfway, watching his commanding eyes carefully. To make it clear before the sloop is loosed, the commander repeats, "Bring me gold, boot, or never return. Bring me gold, and I'll promote you. A corporal ghost. The pension of a life of new leather, laces, and land." A real joke, then, so the men laugh. The lines are cast. They fall out. The commander and all go back to the business of continent making. Only the priest stays, lips pursed. He crosses himself, his loamy eyes on the pilot, his mind a Marian dream. The sky is lazurite. He stays on the dock till he sees for himself that the pilot has the sloop well into the drift. He stays through the pilot's solitary rowing back to the dock in the dinghy. He stays and watches the wind whose wishing will or won't make the world over. And only when the distance shivers the line between sky and water does he cough and leave. Land like an eye shuddering, an ocean a sheet, a squall, map flat and drenched in direction, corners of nowhere, making a paper compass of them. That bone-colored sun, the divination of three shimmering abjurations. Wind, wave, blazed white, gust of wake, pleated spray, breach to careen, reel to each scream of a swell. So a storm is a winnowing, lightning a labyrinthine forking, prophetic and fulgent in its wandering center. The Pacific in grooves like wood grain rift cut, the sloop with planks surrendering through the cage of a moon crowning drifting. The coast comes and goes. The sun becomes the stars. Kelp consecrates their making and unmaking in succession. A bioluminescent shush bears them. The Covery, Delisle, Venus, Cortez, a boot, Orion, Vespucci, Liverpool, Jehovah, Linnaeus, the Milky Way, Aquinas, Merseyside, and Apron, Carlos IV, Mezcala, Zephyrus, Guerrero, Polaris, Ramon, Panon, Mary, Eratosthenes, Arattle, Animoy, George III, the Pacific, Calafia. Bare spars stripped by the Spanish, unleaved trees, poles implying flags, living wind, ransacked for a quarter of memory, spectral canvas, accorded with whispers, cursively is the expression of how this sloop moves. No trinity, neither return, nor prayer, ceremony, vision, ritual, steering, just a wheel of fraying water, a running, a gain, a runagate, its sole secret, a plate, a bowl, a rope, a rod, it doesn't matter, dismanufacture will horizon them all. But a sudden point where the brine splits, a rise, a ridge, a height, and sand, an ellipsis of a beach, a coming, a running, a ground. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Wayde. Okay, it's my absolute joy and privilege to introduce our next reader, Hope Anderson. Hope first contributed to TCR in issue 1.5, which was published in the spring of 1974. While Hope's work strangely wasn't on my radar until quite recently, in picking up his stellar 1987 book, Slips from Grace, I was immediately struck by the expansive web of personal connections woven through the work in the form of dedications, anecdotes, references, and quotations. It seems like Hope knows everybody. Indeed, his poetics are deeply enmeshed with the larger scope of his life's work that has involved assembling communities around him in literature, in activism, and in the academic world, each with the same generosity and intimacy at their core. The forthcoming issue of TCR will feature an extensive folio of Hope's work, past and present, and will mark a homecoming to the pages of our magazine after a hiatus of nearly 45 years. Welcome and welcome back, Hope. Oh, still got to read the bio. Hope Anderson is a writer and editor based in Victoria, Canada. He's the author of the poetry collection Slips from Grace, and with David Phillips is a co-editor of the anthology of BC poets, The Body. For 21 years, he was the director of Ancillary Services and co-editor of the Florida Memorial Academic Review at Florida Memorial University, and for 2 years ran The Well, a community art and literary space in Victoria. A selection of his poems can also be found in the collection Make It True, Poetry from Cascadia. And here's Hope.
It's kind of a, I'm going to preface my reading with a couple of things that are critical. One is the fact that when I first moved to British Columbia back in 1973, it was the very first year of the Western Front. And the generation that I'm a part of was a very passionate generation. And so it's really wonderful to see that that passion has lasted and created an institution. I mean, that's one of the great ironies about how having lived long enough to see these things, because so many of my friends are not here to be a witness to their efforts. one of my very dear friends, Pierre Capet, is here, who is the founder of the Capilano Review, which also started just around the time I moved to BC, and his generosity knows no bounds. He continues to be a conduit for knowledge and information about his friends. It's hard to stand here and try to read poems. I mean, I haven't been in front of an audience of writers or poets for a number of years. I write because that's what I do. I write because I love the art of writing and I love language, but it's never, there was a time, let me say this, there was a time when I thought that everything that I had to say needed to be heard, you know, which is a conceit of young people, being young. And I learned later that language it stays with you, and it grows and it deepens. And it's better to not say anything. It's something my mother knows. Don't say anything if you don't have anything to say. Wait until you have something to say. So, but I continued saying these things mostly in a conversation with myself, because I want to, and that's why I'm sitting there, I'm trying to debate, because I, you know, got so many poems that I've written over the last 45 years. And I'm trying to decide, in agreement with a friend that I've discovered who is an extraordinary human being who pulled me out of obscurity, Jenny Pepperty. And I have, so yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is that I've got too many things to read in 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do, you know, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is, because of the fact that I've returned to this place after 50 years, and one of my close friends just died 2 days ago, and I miss him. One of my other friends, who I co-edited the body with, is sitting deathly ill. So I'm not comfortable just reading just anything. So I'm going to read poems that reflect what I want to deal with. I'm going to read some poems. I hadn't thought about it. I'm telling you the absolute truth. I hadn't thought about this. I'm going to read some poems called Family Portrait. Some poems for my children and my grandchildren. Because it's all about, nothing is more important than love. And it begins there. It begins with the people that are closest to you. And so if you ever come across my book, Slips from Grace, and people say, you know, all these poems are written to people. Yes, it's all, you know, there is nothing more important than the community that you make, and you can see yourself reflected in the lives of others. All right, and I see myself reflected in the lives of all those people that I wrote those poems to. But I'm gonna read two poems that are not, because at one point I was going to read from the folio that's being presented by the review in its current issue. But I'm going to encourage you to get the book. I'm going to encourage you to get the magazine. And so I'm not going to read too many things from that. I'm going to read a poem that really speaks to the moment, because I get my heart gets broken very easily. There's a person in the audience. And anytime if you ever see anything of mine that speaks of innocence and a broken heart, there's a person in this audience who shadows those thoughts. But I live on the edge of a walk that God has given me this great gift to live where I live. And it's a long story, but I won't bore you with the story. But so I walk this walk every day. Well, most times. Most times I try to walk that walk every day. And I met this woman, and she's a very engaging person, and she has an interest in writing, and we talk. And she has an interest in people. And I have an interest in people. I don't talk to a lot of people, but I have an interest in them. And so one day I was walking along the bay, and I noticed that she wanted to say something to me. We don't have that kind of friendship where it's very personal. And so I got the sense that there was something that was burdening her, and she just needed to talk. So I said to her, Maggie, what is it? What is the issue? And she started weeping. She started to weep. And as I think about, so I'm going to begin this reading with this poem, because I'm thinking about Barry and how that loss is so personal to me. And I think, so I'm reflecting on this person who's now my friend, Maggie, who happened to, that day, she told me she lost her daughter in the woods out in Souk, BC. The irony is that she lost her daughter on the day that we celebrate my daughter Deja's birthday, December 9th. So this is how the world lines up. That's how the stars lines up. And so I'm thinking about that loss when I wrote that, not that woman's loss, but what it means to me personally, right? And so when I think about Barry as well, it calls for this poem, and the title is Surely Some Revelation is at Hand. The title is taken from W.B. Yeats' poem, Second Coming. Is the first line in the second stanza of that poem. And it goes, and Pierre probably will get the reference to the first line. I don't know, I hope he does. At the end of the quiet street, some called a cul-de-sac, the fir log flamed in the pit, the protected arbutus, no shade from the tyrant pretending to offer peaceful rest. I watched from what felt like the second heavens between here and there. At the edge of the desolate estate, unaware, proverbial mixed multitude danced and should have been impressed by the easy play which belied our ancestral blaze. As if we are not active in the ant-like Gestapo drill or the scurrying scramble cower from overpowering enemy in our slow descent of the short unconscious sprint. Is it to shoal? There the soul does not sleep. Thought held the minds of faint hearts prisoner. The dusty road leads to morning, to another city and state buried deep, sleepwalking to the cul-de-sac. The missing body not found among millions strewn in the open fields, nor amidst carcasses left in city streets, casually left by weapons of grisly slaughter, but with thousands hidden under silent streets and lost and strange as death itself, yet the whispers insistent on an insistent tale as the lie of the second plane. I still watch grave processions, as if sadly alien and grown with the land, would weep for mothers who held back tears, whose passionate conference cannot play. In the glow of their beloved, fathers search, light diligently fearful, in the dark, not believing it is the end. So I begin the reading with that poem. Then I'm going to read a poem. Well, I'm going to just read the series for my children. You know, me standing here with a tablet, it's an odd thing, because my friend David Phillips and we swore that we would never even get a word processor. But I've lost so many poems that I covenanted with my kids that in order for me not to lose poems, I'm going to write them and I'm going to send them to you guys. I'm going to send them to primarily my two daughters, so I won't lose them. Okay, that's why I don't like these things, because I can't manage them. Can't find things. But it's easier to find them here than in my closet. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what happens when you're 73. You get you know, there are certain privileges.
Yeah, okay. Wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to read them all because there are too many. I mean, I've got 5 grandchildren and 3 children, and I got a mother and a mother who died and a father who died, and I miss them all, and I'm sometimes just too sad for all the loss. You know, this world is just full of sadness. So I'll begin with one that inspired by a conversation I had with Pierre Capet years ago, when we loved to listen and read the poems of Garcia Lorca. So I'll begin with that poem, and it's a self-portrait. I loved the little devil before love was seen, pursued it in the dark of night, believing I followed a beautiful woman. Watching her in traje, the flamenco clapping, snapping castanets, clicking her heels as if to disappear into the deep song. Become woefully wearied by her changing face, I loved the little devil, recklessly rushed her way into the eddies, languished in her secret places off the shores of Muffinland. I probably should have told you a little bit about Muffinland, but perhaps you'll get it. I love the little devil embraced this strain whose words so brilliantly sad require French cigarettes as icon, summoned me as a pallbearer, her masked minstrel mapping the burial ground. I loved the little devil before my heart could hear its breath, seek my kindred, retrieve my true heritage, sail back from cracking earth, very strange gods. The second part of it is a better view. Beloved, are you there in the worlds beyond Muffin Land? I cannot escape your remarkable outstretched hand, holding a candle or hiding the wound. If it were only stigmata, I would ask, what's the use? As I need what is needed when walking into battlegrounds. Are you there just verse or poetry, leaving me without purpose? Still quick, sought to return with scattered leaves from your garden, yet finding no one more angelic rising from the spring, matchless in the ride on the horse pulled from your broken heart, and arms filled with promises for others, not just for me. When I celebrate your generosities, have I eaten opiates? Here self-promoting, talking beasts offer immortality, and would have lost my way in this world, but the crimson light about you changes my course. Okay. I'm going to read one for my granddaughter. My granddaughter, Hannah, she lives in Georgia, so I don't get a chance to see her much. And for Hannah, my granddaughter. Now, I have some friends of mine from who are visiting all the way from Florida, and share my Jamaican roots. And there is, even though the poem doesn't necessarily speak about Jamaica, there's a qualitative sense of Jamaica in it. Okay. I'm going to read two of for my two granddaughters, for two of my granddaughters. One is called The Rolling Calf. The rolling calf in Caribbean lore is a monster. We used to tell each other ghost stories, right, when we were kids. And I had a box that I'd created, and I would tell my stories with a matchbox. And my stories are always about the rolling calf, so I could scare my friends, so they would never go to sleep. And so this one, so I didn't want to scare my granddaughter, so the rolling calf is not very scary. This rolling calf is not scary. It's a good rolling calf. Rolling calf, the roaming judge of the very mean ones, who in daylight scare the little ones, like you, littlest lamb, when the stars are dimmed and cane leaves are quiet in the night. Rolling calf, the cruel ones will hear your chain. Your eyes are the dread of the evil ones, burning into space where their hearts should be, and harem scaring is how they must feel like curdling sad rain. Rolling calf, roaming the gates of the cemetery. When the world's asleep, like the littlest one in the cradle, sometimes, though meant for evil, rolling calf, the last array can be for good. Anyways, so the little Okay. All right, this final one from the series for my granddaughter, Hannah. On the way up Mount Pleasant, we saw a rabbit sound asleep as tortoise ambled on. We wished to see Nana, but now have to imagine her as I imagine you, growing strong as mahogany, yet light as air. I'm told she had long straight hair, but unsure if it's so, as it's tradition in these parts to attend the length of women's hair so they become more acceptable. I know she was lovely nonetheless, just as you are, being a gift from the heavens, like her spiritual sisters everywhere, burnished deeply by the sun. We approach the summit, think of Queen Nana, whose spirit I pray you have. Close behind us is Tortoise. As we begin our long descent to Muffin Land, we find Rabbit just waking from his sleep. Now, what is this Muffin Land? When I first moved to Victoria, and I rehearsed this story to Jenny, but we got on the ferry with two of my good friends, Scott Watson and George Stanley. And it's my habit, whenever I go to a new city, to look for a bookstore. So they were, Scott was he was the curator at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and he was going to curate a show at the Victoria Art Gallery. And so I said, okay, you guys just, leave me at Monroe's Books. And this happened 3 times in my life, talking to a bookstore manager and getting a job in a bookstore. It happened in Montreal when I was a student at became Chapters. Because I would go in and, I couldn't afford the books, so I'd stand there and read the books. And the bookstore manager would say, ask me, are you ever going to buy a book? So I said, well, if you give me a job, I could afford one. So I ended up working there while I was a student at Dawson College. And then when I moved to Vancouver, I would go into Duthie Books and engage Bill Duthie in conversations. And he said, would you like to work here? And I said, sure. I was working as a printer because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a printer so I could print books, not sell them. I wanted to print books. So anyhow, Bill Duthie gave me a job at Duthie Books. So when I went to Victoria, I went to Monroe's Books because I knew about Monroe's, which was started by Bill Monroe and his wife. How could I forget her name? What? Alice Monroe. So anyhow, I got a job there. But before I got the job, Scott says to me, why are you hanging around the bookstore? I said, well, I could use a job. And so I ended up talking to Jim Monroe, and we got into a conversation. I didn't ask him for a job, we just talked about books. And he needed a manager for his store in Market Square, and he said, would you like to work in my store? And so I ended up working there. So Scott says to me, when I told him, I said, Scott, I'm going to work at Monroe's Books. He said, you are now exiled in Muffin Land. So I appropriated Muffin Land as my personal name, right? And so once I started writing this series, I decided to title them Adventures. Originally, it was Adventures in Muffin Land. And then they became Chronicles in Muffin Land. So that's what that's about. All right, I know my time is almost up, so I'm going to read one more poem, and it's from the folio because it's the poem that I've been working on. Well, I'm working on 2 poems for the last 20 years, and they never seem to end. I mean, well, many people do this, my Barry Nickel, B.B. Nickel did it, and many people, Pound and, the poets have poems that never end. And my poem, I never thought it would ever be published until Jenny thought it was something of value. So I'm going to read one section from it. Okay. One section from it. No wonder David Phillips hated these things. I've got it. Yes. I think so. Well, we've got a very patient audience, so. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay. The poem is called The Grace of Centuries. When I had my cafe in Victoria, like many projects, it just needed people to support my efforts. But well, let me tell you something very, very vital about that spot. It was called the Well. We opened the well with Derek Walcott as our guest. We were given many accolades for being the most important arts venue in the city. But it was a 16-hour-a-day job that cost me my health and the few dollars that I'd accumulated when I worked at the university in Florida. Because I really hated to see a lot of my friends just dying and self-destructive deaths. And I wanted to do something because that's how I've been all my life. Where there's a gap, I want to do something. I don't want to talk about it. I want to do something, And so I wanted to create a healthy atmosphere for artists. Okay, I had it and it's gone. Okay. Yeah, so while I try to find it, so I had this place, and this woman comes in to my store, and we were just gone to our second year. We had a very good first year, and things were going well. We had an artist event that the city of Victoria supported, but we just needed more funding. And so anyways, this woman comes into my shop, And she says to me, because I'm a Christian, she says, how could a black man be a Christian? So, of course, I mean, I was taken aback because, I mean, obviously this person must know something about black people's history. You know, if she's making this statement, she must know something about black people's history. So I said, have you ever read anything about these people you're referring to? Do you know anything about black people? Do you know that our history did not begin with slavery? Did you know that our history goes from the beginning of humanity? Our history is a function of the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's part of the history of the world. So I decided, because I'd started another series of poems called, my version of Paradise Lost. But this is more important. So, because, you know, I'm saying, you know, I've got my children, I've got my grandchildren, and I've got, you know, a family and friends who may not know, may be told this lie, because I believe that lie, that our history began with slavery. And so I decided to embark on this. With this knowledge, since I have the knowledge about our true history and its relationship with the church, and the black church being the center of black activity, that I need to tell this story. So it's planned as a 100 cantos poem. I've got 24. The Folio's publishing, I know, whatever it's publishing. And I'm just going to read that little section. But this thing just keeps disappearing. DJ, I'm calling you again, and because I'm going to do it, then I'll be done.
It's just touch that thing there. Okay.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. It's in memory of Phyllis Wheatley, the first African who was published in the U.S. It is the final test or true awakening. We joked, talked of going the distance, left alone, found purgatory on the way to perdition, driftwood floating between islands into the widening sea, gone into the deep, the blue sweetness of rough temptations, the dark moaning choirs, not of angels, but of centuries of clanging European chains. Ancestral sweat begins, dark divine strains, in minor key calling from the bowels, rising from the passage, bluing the high seas, listening to the great beyond. This time the response was both in stillness and megaphone. Master, you whip me, oh. Master, you kill me, oh. I live with a bad man, oh. I live with a bad man, oh. And Cyprian's refuge in his quiet soliloquies, the echoes of inanities encircling the Carthaginian souls, making us weep. Yes, nothing holds except the city of God. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from the rivers of Cush, ancient source of splendid love and issue. I have forgotten much, but still remember Menelik's sacred treasure, a long way from the fertile banks of Mizraim, yet sing Alpha's song in strange lands, where strange fruit swing from trees. People shield their eyes, uttered not a word because some were afraid. Coming home are the tall, smooth skin from the land divided by rivers, and of King Terhaka, Amaleki's mystical instrument in Judah's salvation. With few bullets and guns, our songs are resonant, encircle the world and touch the hearts of many. The raindrops dance upon the waters, like fingers gently playing the keys, each note rhythmic patterns remind us of the designer's hand shaping our souls, who lives to heal the brokenhearted. And when Moses married his Nubian queen, before Miriam sinned with pride and prejudice, stirred the King of Kings, start warning, her skin became a leprous thing. Though the river has bitter foam, his branches make it fit to drink. So sing the hallelujah, bring Miriam's timbrels, forgiven, see her sisters dance, join in Aaron's praises, Moses prophesying, Selah. Is the possum playing possum, just glaring at me? Does she know what she knows, or she only her mother's find? Is the luster in the painter's palette a stroke of luck, her brilliant form, her mind alone, whose harmonious choirs echo through the ages, belie the suffering, though hummingbirds' distinctive chorus as luminous as the swells. The perfect hallelujahs tuned with Miriam's tambourines, her sisters dance and angelic swirl, join in Aaron's praises, Moses prophesying, sing amen. Thank you.
Thank you for those poems, Hope, and everything around them. Thank you, Samantha, Wayde, and Hope, for sharing your work with us, and to everyone here with us tonight for making space for these words. If you enjoyed tonight's reading, please sign up for a mailing list to keep current on all our upcoming events. So please feel free to hang around, grab a drink, and do visit us at the merch table and show your support by donating or buying some merchandise. We'd also love to chat with you. Thanks again, and have a wonderful evening.